戦闘開始だ。ハンナー。
In anime, we often think of conflicts and fights being the whole "my sword is bigger than yours," "no, mine is even bigger than yours" type of exchanges. A lot of battle shonen are actually quite notorious for that, I know. That's why we're going to talk about conflicts and battles that have this extra depth to them in this episode. We're talking strategy, we're talking big brain plays, and we're talking fast mental reflexes. Yes, today we'll talk about some of my favorite battles where planning and strategy come into play to show you that even in those fights filled with fireworks and spectacles, there are a few ones where brains come into play in a surprisingly creative way. Do brains always beat brawn in the list we're doing? Well, not necessarily, but those mental gymnastics sure can get surprisingly interesting. I don't want to keep you waiting, so here are some of my favorite anime battles involving strategy. Naruto has one of these early in Shikamaru vs Temari.
ようやく影真似の術成功。
Despite people knowing Naruto more for the broken abilities and overpowered character forms, I'd say that it has some of the most strategic fights in Battle Shonen. Now, a lot of them came in the Chunin exam arc, you know, when the power scaling was still low, thus the spotlight shines on Shikamaru. We've known Shikamaru to be a master strategist, known more for his intelligence and quick thinking instead of an overwhelming power or magical eyes. That's why the battle against Temari, another master strategist, is a match made in heaven. And for the most part of it, it seems that Shikamaru was the one taking the beating. He was on the defensive the whole time, only to masterfully spring his trap that he planned for in the very beginning. It was a very long-term plan, and despite having forfeited the match, it's clear as day that Shikamaru is the rightful winner here. When a non-fan watches JoJo, the first thing that stands out, no pun intended, would likely be the stand battles, the insane abilities that stand users throw at each other. However, any fan knows that a lot of fights in JoJo's storied run go beyond just stands pummeling each other like Star Platinum versus the world. I personally find the series of derby fights pretty good because more than just people hitting each other, it is all about strategy. The poker match in particular comes to mind, and it's a match full of tension as both Darby and Jotaro try to one-up each other in mental maneuvering. Not to mention that with souls on the line, the stakes are as high as ever. Darby feels tame as a villain but has that cool factor because he's one who fights with psychological warfare. It's hard not to show any sign of weakness in high-stakes poker matches, and that's where his stand thrives in. It's just too bad he found his match in Jotaro. Hunter x Hunter's Dodgeball match deserves a mention at least. There are many memorable segments in Greed Island, but if we're talking big brain plays and strategy, few can beat the Dodgeball match. I dare say this part has become underrated for the quality of writing, but that's more of a testament to how good the Greed Island arc is as a whole. Of course, it's not an anime dodgeball match without bullshit rules and absurdly high stakes, but that's what makes it so awesome. I like how it's also one of the most intense training sessions there is. In this case, it's all about training hunters to value teamwork, and as selfish as some may be, being able to rally people for a common goal is a must for any competent hunter. The match has no shortage of drama, and I like how it built character in various places. You see Gon's selfishness, and Killua gets his chance to shine. Seriously, with how engaging the match was, the 3 episodes just seemed to pass by, and that formation for the win at the end was a thing to remember. Hisoka stealing the show once again, don't you think?
バンジーガムはガムとゴム両方の性質を併せ持つ
Next is what I think is an underrated moment in Shaman King 2021. There's not much buzz with the remake of Shaman King now, is there? Can't blame them when the anime producers somehow thought zooming through the plot was a good idea. Still, it does have some cool moments once in a while, watered down as they may be. In particular, I have an X-Laws bias, and I think X3 facing off against Hao is a pretty cool moment. Yep, X3 ended up being nothing but fodder to Hao, but you've got to give them chops for their ingenious way of trying to defeat the most overpowered character in the show. It took numerous lives, but the group eventually finds a way to smartly expose the Spirit of Fire's weak point. Well, it doesn't work because Hao has his main villain plot armor, but still. This fight, albeit short and having a predetermined result, excels because it builds hype in multiple ways. We see how powerful Hao was, how the X-Laws see each other as disposable, and how creative they can be when trying to defeat their enemies. Up next is Grey versus Silver. With how its reputation was by the time it was all over, it won't come as a surprise if Fairy Tail isn't on your list of shows with strategic fights. But here we are with a showcase fight and possibly one of Grey's personal highlights. Well, not his final battle by any means, so do note that there are still 2 arcs after this. I see this fight as one of Grey's last glorious moments for himself. We get teased to one of the biggest payoffs to his long storyline with Deliora, which was originally revealed in one of the earliest arcs, and Silver's words energize him enough to overcome a seemingly unwinnable battle. Through Nakama power, as we've come to expect? No, through strategy. It has some great callbacks to Grey's backstory with a heavy emphasis on Ice Shell, and he uses this to his advantage, outsmarting Silver with his numerous clones and finishing the battle. I hope you're enjoying this video so far because I'm here to ask for some subscriptions. So if you feel that this content is something that you enjoy, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button up there and help the channel reach that 1 million sub mark. Alright, let's get back to the show. No Game No Life for me is one of the best isekai there is, and it doesn't even feature an overpowered protagonist. Well, in the traditional sense at least. However, the pair known as Blank continually show their mettle in outsmarting opponents and overcoming the odds, but it would seem that they've found their match in Jibril. What follows is by far the most insane game of Shiritori you'll see in anime, and nothing's topping that anytime soon. Whatever you say appears if it's absent and appears if it's present. You have highlights like Sora summoning a freaking bomb at the start to Blank, and Jibril bringing out the big guns and causing planetary explosions, with a healthy dose of fan service in between classic No Game No Life fashion, mind you. The siblings have shown their intelligence numerous times. This is probably the most eye-popping display of it in the series by far. Blank really planned for the eventual endgame from the first move. I'd really recommend watching the series just for this scene alone. Plus, everyone loves Jibril, at least before No Game No Life 0, so it's a win-win.
異世界人、いえ、イマニティ、本当に凄まじい種族。
We don't often equate fate with particularly smart fights, probably because we're used to seeing magnificent, noble phantasms like Excalibur. However, the battle between Kirei and Giritsugu is actually quite strategic, even if it's not exactly evident at first. There are barely any words spoken in the fight, but it just highlights the excellence of the scene through the fighter's body language. With how much of an expert both of them are, this pretty much boils down to a one-shot fight, where the first one who lands the decisive hit wins, and that necessitates much strategizing. Take note though, Kirei is the one person Giritsugu fears in the series, and their final showdown shows just that. You can see that despite the blitzing they do, the actions are planned and deliberate, and the fight visibly takes a toll on them physically as it goes on. You don't see much monologue here, but there's just this appeal to showing something instead of telling the viewers, and this fight shows that style with pure excellence. I feel that few people talk about World Trigger, and it's just a bit unfortunate seeing as how awesome the series is. Spanning 3 seasons, it just kept getting better as it went on. This particular moment, however, took place in the 2nd season. Here we have Border taking on the invaders in a battle royale for the ages. I like this 4-on-2 because of how much you get to see the fighters' thought process. You can also see the teamwork in play, while the combatants clearly learn and adjust on the fly, shifting tactics while learning about attacks to prevent and points to target in the process. I also like how the fighters' abilities all complement and augment each other in this battle. It's an action-heavy fight, and while it's not exactly as big-brained as something like the No Game No Life moment, it is great in how it showed some of the most important aspects of combat, adaptability, and team chemistry. In a huge-scale ensemble battle like this, those are must-haves for survival. and that just about wraps up my list. But I do know for sure that there are way more big brain battles in anime. Heck, the whole of Death Note counts if you'd ask me. So if you've got a specific battle in mind that I failed to mention, then please tell me in the comments section. I'm always on the lookout for new content, so your help will be very much appreciated. Also, if you want to connect with the channel, I'll be leaving a Discord and Instagram link in the description box, so come over and have some fun. Patreon and channel memberships are also open for those who want to help the channel monetarily. That's it for today. Hope you had a great time watching the video, and I'll be seeing you soon.